I know I took another break from posting. Spring is just very busy at work, so I sacrificed my blog to make sure I spend time with my family. Now, with work slowing down, I want to post again because apparently our nation has lost its effing mind. I will try not to curse, but no promises. Again, a monster has unleashed terror on our nation, and again, the liberals are not blaming the monster. They're blaming you and me. Yes, they say it is my fault and your fault that someone else decided to kill innocent people. It isn't his fault, it's your fault, and it's my fault. Especially mine because I'm white and I'm a man. Well, you know what, Jimmy Kimmel and Hillary Clinton and Trevor Noah and all you liberal progressive communists? Bite me. In reality, the only person responsible for this massacre is Stephen Paddock, the man who consciously chose to pull the trigger. He committed the crime, not me, not any other law-abiding citizen, certainly not the NRA, and not anyone else who might disagree with you lunatics. But, as it always does with these types of incidents, the Second Amendment's relevance has been called into question. But unlike our moral leaders, as they like to imply they are, but in reality they are just wannabe tyrants, we, the logical, responsible, and angry citizens of the United States, know better than to discuss policy based solely on emotion. We know the facts must drive change, not feelings. We are all hurting inside right now, but our feelings do not change the facts and do not matter in the real world. Your feelings, Jimmy Kimmel, are irrelevant. So stop playing God and go back to that piss-poor example of so-called comedy you hustle every night. So for those of you, liberal or conservative, who would like to learn some facts on the issue, this is for you. First, I want to start with the two most important things found in the Constitution of the United States of America. These are, of course, my own opinion and must be taken with a grain of salt. Now, the two most important parts of our great Constitution are the First and Second Amendment, in what is rightly called the Bill of Rights. These read as follows. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, this is what they say, but our socialist would-be dictators don't want you to know what these actually mean, especially the second one. So let's break them down. The First Amendment is fairly self-explanatory. We, as citizens of this great nation, have the right to practice whatever religion we see fit, and the government cannot make one national religion that everyone must adhere to. This has somehow been misconstrued as the government cannot make any law or policy based on Judeo-Christian values, and cannot allow any Judeo-Christian activity to occur in a public place. This isn't what the amendment says, but we're here to discuss the Second Amendment, so we will have to table this discussion. The next amendment says we have the right to speak our mind. Now again, progressives demand that certain kinds of speech, such as anything said by people of Judeo-Christian backgrounds, are not protected under this. But look, the wording says, abridging the freedom of speech. Now I will be defining words in this post several times, and I will include the link to where I got my definition in the description. So our first vocabulary word is abridge. What does Merriam-Webster's dictionary define it as? In this context specifically, to reduce in scope. So the government doesn't have the right to reduce what we the people are allowed to say. This doesn't mean we can only speak freely about the government. It means we can speak freely about anything. Your mouth cannot be filtered by the feds. So next is freedom of the press. This is simply freedom of the news reporters to speak freely and openly about the government and other issues. Next, we have the right to peaceably assemble, or peaceful protests. No, not riot like Antifa and the alt-right try to do. Peaceful protests like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks and the real civil rights leaders. Along with this, we can petition the government on any issue we think needs their attention. All of these are what make America the freest society in the history of the world. The Founding Fathers knew we couldn't have a democratic republic without these key protections. But they were also wise enough to know corruption would enter this glorious republic they were building. So, as they did with all aspects of the government, they built in safeguards. We love the term checks and balances. This is why the Second Amendment is just as important as the First. Our founders knew we would have the problem we have today, a government hell-bent on taking away our First Amendment protections. So, they gave the people a tool that would scare the living daylights out of the corrupt tyrants. And that is you and I. We are the weapon that keeps our government in check. In fact, our Founding Fathers had this to say: a free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined. George Washington, in his first annual address to both houses of Congress, January 8, 1790. What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to James Madison, December 20th, 1787. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are in almost every country in Europe. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword, because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any band of regular troops. Noah Webster, An Examination of the Leading Principles of the Federal Constitution, October 10th, 1787. These are things our own founders had to say about arming you, the citizens of this nation. We not only can be armed, we should be armed. But progressives need this to change in order to bring their religion of communism to our shores finally. They make claims such as the Second Amendment doesn't apply to military-style weapons, or it only applies to handguns. Some even have the guts to say it only applies to the militia, or National Guard as we like to call it today, though this is incorrect to do so since the National Guard now serves in capacities far beyond defending the physical territory of the nation. So let's look at what exactly the amendment says and what it means. First, it says, a well-regulated militia. A militia is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as a part of the organized armed forces of a country liable to call only in emergency, and a body of citizens organized for military service. The whole body of the able-bodied male citizens declared by law as being subject to call to military service. This does not fit the description of the National Guard, does it? Now, being necessary to the security of a free state. I think we all know what a free state is, but let's clarify what a state is. A politically organized body of people usually occupying a definite territory, especially one that is sovereign. This is according to Merriam-Webster's as well. So we know this, but it continues. The right of the people. Who are the people? Well, that's a duh. You and I are the people. It doesn't say militia or government or police. It says people. If the word people here means only the militia, then the phrase we the people at the very beginning of this whole document means just militia or governing body, or whatever else the socialists want it to mean. No, when the founders said the people, it meant the citizens of the United States of America. Now let us discuss the word right. This is not the right side of your body or perhaps the correct use of something. It is right, as defined by law.com's dictionary, an entitlement to something, whether to concepts like justice and due process, or to ownership of property, or some interest in property, real or personal. This means we the people are entitled to this thing they are talking about. So to finish, to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Keep. We know what that means. Bear. Most Americans have at least a slim understanding of this. But the word arms seems to have been forgotten. No, this is not arms as in the two appendages attached to your torso. This is a shortened word of armament. What is armament? Glad you asked. Merriam-Webster's defines it this way. 1. a military or naval force. 2. The aggregate of a nation's military strength. And 3. The process of preparing for war. So arms literally means weapons of war. OMG. Not weapons of hunting, not weapons of self-defense. This means the Founding Fathers actually said we are allowed to carry military-grade weapons with us. But wait, you say no armament isn't the correct term. Okay, well, Oxford Dictionary defines arms this way: weapons, armaments. So yes, armament is the correct term. So anytime a liberal snowflake tries to scold you for trying to purchase military-style weapons, tell them, this rifle is all that keeps President Trump from being the Nazi you so desperately want him to be. Oh, but our liberal cousins are not done yet. They tell you times have changed. The weapons the founders wanted to protect were simply muskets like this one, not semi-automatic AR-15s. Again, their argument holds no water. If this were true, then freedom of the press would only pertain to newspapers, and freedom of speech wouldn't cover Facebook and Twitter. Oh, and all that healthcare they swear up and down is a right? It would look like this. So I must remind you, my socialist idiot friends, your stupid is showing. Then they throw out statements like, we must prevent these mass murders. These massacres are horrible. If we had sensible gun laws like the rest of the civilized world, we wouldn't have these mass shootings. Well, let me remind you of the quote from Mr. Webster himself. I just shared it a moment ago, so. Before a standing army can rule, the people must be disarmed, as they are in almost every country in Europe. The supreme power in America cannot enforce unjust laws by the sword, because the whole body of the people are armed and constitute a force superior to any band of regular troops. Here's what the Honorable President Thomas Jefferson had to say about the issue. The laws that forbid the carrying of arms are laws of such a nature. They disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. This is from his commonplace book, where he was quoting 18th century criminologist Cesare Beccaria. But they continue to scream, but our children are dying. People are dying. Well, President Jefferson also had something to say about that. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. This was in a letter to James Madison on January 30th, 1787. Oh dear, the progressive narrative is falling apart. But they say we must do something, and we must do something now, or countless more people will die. Let me direct their attention to this quote. Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It is the creed of slaves. This is from William Pitt the Younger, in his speech in front of the House of Commons, November 18, 1783. Mr. Pitt was actually a former Prime Minister of Great Britain. Yes, one of those strict gun law countries Democrats demand we imitate. So, it's clear the Democrats and progressive left and democratic socialists all have one thing on their mind. It isn't protecting innocent lives. Because if they have no problem with the systematic slaughter of millions of children, all brought to you by Planned Parenthood, where their founder, Margaret Sanger, actually said this, we do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. See the hypocrisy of the left here? Mr. Kimmel condemns you and I for abiding by the law. All the while, the corrupt political machine he markets for tries to subvert and utterly disregard the law to seize control of our lives. Oh, but wait. They claim all the conservative politicians are in the pockets of the NRA. Well, Mr. Kimmel, here's a list of the top lobbying groups from 2016. Please help me find where the National Riflemen's Association is on the list. Oh, you can't find it? 'Cause it's not there! According to OpenSecrets.com, they spent just under $3 million on lobbying in 2016. That doesn't even come close to the top 50 lobbying spenders, as revealed by Open Secrets. which start out at just over 7 million. So another liberal talking point bites the bullet. Yes, pun intended. The final thing every snowflake wants to cry about is background checks. And guess what? Almost all conservatives are okay with background checks. Why? Because we actually obey the laws and don't have anything to hide. Anyone against background checks is hiding something. Yes, we should improve this process within the scope of the law. But background checks wouldn't have prevented the massacre in Vegas or any of the other mass shootings where the murderer passed the background checks or simply obtained their weapon illegally. So I believe that is all the liberal talking points down. No, guns are not bad. Heck, the guy used a hammer to knock out the windows. Perhaps we should ban hammers so people can't be knocking out windows while we're at it. Now, if you want to actually educate yourself on the issues, I highly recommend you follow Ben Shapiro. He's a very funny, highly educated conservative commentator at the Daily Wire. He is one of the best in the industry today. But beware all you leftists out there. He cares nothing for your feelings and will make you cry, then drink those very tears. Thank you for listening. God bless you.